Hi, I'm Jess. I have 2 children. The first was born unmedicated in a hospital, and the second, I planned to have it unmedicated in a hospital, but after many hours of labor, I had a C-section. At 7 a.m., my water broke. I wasn't feeling any labor pains, but we knew that we should head to the hospital anyway. So we did, and when we got there, they tested my water and it had broken. But again, I still wasn't feeling any labor pains, so that we weren't rushing or anything like that. And so they admitted me to just the waiting area to see if labor would start. It never did, so they suggested that I be induced. I said that was fine. My intention was to have an unmedicated birth. Around 10 o'clock, they were able to give me Pitocin and set me up in the hospital room. Labor pains started pretty slowly. There was nothing that me and my partner couldn't handle. Really, nothing started picking up until around 2 p.m. When I still was only dilated to about a 4 or 5, I was pretty disappointed, but I still felt good because I could stay on top of the labor pains. Nothing really happened since then. They kept upping my Pitocin dose, and the contractions were more intense, but I wasn't dilating that much. So finally, that went on till that evening around 8, and it was still, I wasn't progressing that much. I believe I was at a 7 or an 8 finally, and the contractions were very intense. Finally, around 10 o'clock, I felt the urge to push, but I was still only at an 8, and the contractions were very strong. And so, after pushing for about 2.5 hours, at a 9.5, 10, the doctor and the nurse said that the baby was coming down but getting stuck on my pelvic bone, and then going back up, and then coming back down, coming back up. So they said that I could keep trying, and we tried all sorts of positions. The nurse was so fantastic to work with me. Tried me on all 4s, squatting, on the birthing ball, on the birthing bar. So I really felt successful that I was able to try all of the methods. And at this point, my birth partner, my husband, was working so wonderfully with me and the nurse, and both of my mother and my mother-in-law were in there helping as well, massaging. And yet still the baby wasn't descending. At this point, both of our heart rates were okay, so they felt okay to keep pushing, but I was swelling quite badly in the vaginal region. So they suggested a C-section, and they said, just want you to prepare you that you might have to have a C-section. And I felt totally okay about it. I had felt confident about the choices that had been offered thus far, and this was about at 11:30, and so I had been in labor for about 15 hours if we count from the time my water broke. Because this was an unplanned C-section, they moved pretty quickly, and so at 11:30 I was signing the paperwork. I was fully coherent at this time. They hadn't given me an epidural or any pain medication. They informed me that I would be getting a spinal instead of an epidural, since that was the method for C-sections. So I was wheeled into the operation room. My husband had to wait outside for about 30 minutes while they got everything set up, and then he was able to come in. And honestly, the procedure went pretty quickly. I didn't feel a thing, and it also went really smoothly. They were able to stitch me up with internal stitches. Obviously, when I heard the cry of my newborn son, I was delighted. They showed me him from the curtain, and then went and weighed him, and then brought him to me and Kirby. So it was wonderful. After I had the C-section, I wasn't sure what to expect, since I had only had a vaginal birth before. After about 30 minutes in the delivery room, they were able to stitch me up. We went to a triage room, and then they brought me to my room. A couple hours later, I was able to sit up in bed, and because I was on pain medication, I didn't notice the feeling of the C-section yet. I was still curious how it was going to be. And even nursing my son felt pretty normal and everything. Being able to use my upper stomach muscles wasn't an issue. And then obviously the next morning, before they had gotten on my pain medication, I felt the pressure of the C-section. And it was obviously a new feeling that I wasn't used to, but would say that it was just a different feeling than having a vaginal recovery. It wasn't worse or better, it was just different. I was able to walk easily the next day, obviously slowly. And then a couple days later when I was at home, I felt it was easy to go to the bathroom. It was fine to get up and nurse and walk around slowly. I obviously tried to pace myself. The only issue I came across was when I would try and sit up in bed and I didn't have anything to support me. It felt like there were pins and needles on my scar. And so I was really worried that I had torn something or that it had been infected or something. And so I had, in my checkups, I had the doctor check it, and it was totally normal. Nothing had torn, nothing had, none of the stitches had come out, and nothing was infected. So they just said that was pretty normal, a normal feeling for some people. And that only lasted for 3 or 4 days. And then honestly, about 2 weeks out, I felt like I could sit up normally. I finally got off my pain meds all the way. I feel like I could walk. It's still, it just sometimes or hurts sometimes if I work out too hard as well. But other than that, my muscles have gone back together. I don't feel many adverse effects from the incision.